Thank you, Mark.
And also, Marty, there's been a swap, and I will be giving the inspiration, and Mary will be quizmaster. So we are switching roles today. She's on her way with my mom.
I couldn't hear you, Kate.
Okay, I will be giving the inspiration, trading with Mary. Mary will be the quizmaster.
Kate and Mary will be quiz?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
She has to come late and I have to leave early, so we're
okay.
Rating.
And the only other housekeeping, I see we have Margot, we have, and then before we get started, I just need Nancy to leave me your title and time, and also Steve, your Smith, your time. Everything else I have. Thank you, everyone. It's 7 o'clock. I'd like to start the meeting. Meeting's being recorded. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for showing up this morning. Everyone here and everyone on Zoom. As tradition goes, I will announce everyone on Zoom unless someone already has. I see Margot. I see Sylvia, David Jones, Mark Campos, Phil Russell, Kate Orr, Marshall, Mike Licata, Phil Russell, Eric Schneider, who am I missing? Tracy Farrell. Tracy, good morning. Speaker one is Nancy, Steve Smith, Tracy, maybe. Okay, so we're good. We have everyone. I see we have a guest. Would someone like to introduce the guest? Good morning. Former Toastmaster Chuck. Yes, welcome back.
Came back. I'm revamping my performance therapy, my horse therapy program, and I got to get a handle on being able to speak.
Awesome. Awesome. Welcome back, Chuck. You probably know another one of our members, former members, Doug Emerson, who's in the horse business. Is that correct? He lives on Chestnut Ridge Road near. Yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll meet him at some point in time because I invited him back as well. So welcome, Chuck. All right, getting into our meeting, our theme this morning is favorite soups. And I chose the theme favorite soups because, you know, that's the time of year we're in. You know, it's cold, not as cold today, but a few weeks ago in the past month were some pretty cold days, single-digit temperatures. And what better way to warm up your body and your soul with a nice warm bowl of soup? My favorite soup is chicken noodle soup. I'm sure all of you have favorites growing up, and I'm sure your family has passed on different recipes. It's always a great thing to pass on recipes through traditional recipes through the families. My second favorite soup is my brother Dan's chicken gumbo soup. And last year he made it at the All Saints, formerly St. Patrick's here in Lockport, has a soup sale, which is February 10th from 11 a.m. until it's gone. February 10th, it's on a Saturday. And he made the chicken gumbo soup there. I'll just tell you a quick story. He made the soup and we found out that it had a bite. It was hot because he, like my brother, likes to heat things up with seasonings. And someone said, Marty, this is too hot. So someone said, why don't you go and find some broth? So I went over to Niagara Tops and got some chicken broth and I poured it in, and it made it a little more palatable. It wasn't as hot, but it was still delicious. And that soup was the first one to sell out. It was very delicious. Just so you know, that soup sale I was telling you about, it's Saturday, February 10th. They have the containers there. You can bring your own. For a pint, it's $5. And a quart, it's $8. They're having vegetable soup, Italian wedding, tortellini, sausage and vegetable, squash, which is from Niagara County. It's going to be squash soup, chili, chicken chowder, and fish chowder soup. At this point, everyone on Zoom and anyone present that has a drink, raise your glass. I'd like to make a toast to a warm bowl or cup of soup and the warmth it brings to our body and soul on any given day. Hear, hear. Cheers. Moving into our roll holders this morning. I'd first like to thank Len for setting up all our equipment this morning. Thank you, Len. And our inspiration, Kate Orr. Please give us some inspiring words from Zoom. Kate?
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster. Can you
Morning.
hear me okay?
Yes.
Sounds like it. Yes. This inspiration was prepared by Mary before we traded roles. This is a beautiful quote about soup by Marge Kennedy. Soup is a lot like a family. Each ingredient enhances the others. Each batch has its own characteristics, and it needs time to simmer to reach full flavor. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Kate. And Mark Campos, please tell us your role as WAG Master, W-A-G. Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning. So for the word of the day, soup doesn't really have any synonyms necessarily, but I thought of soup as being a combination of things, different meats, vegetables, broths, what have you. So I decided upon the word coalesce this morning, which is a verb. The definition is to unite or come together in one body or mass. So the word of the day is coalesce. Please write it down, and I will put it in the chat. Additionally, as Wagmaster, I will be listening for all the filler words, the ahs, the ums, the pregnant pauses, as well as evaluating everyone's use of grammar this morning, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, we have Eric Schneider, our quote master. Eric.
Eric is still driving. You'll have to wait till later.
Okay, we'll come back to Eric. And a jest from Margot Subittner. Margot.
Finding an appropriate jest about soup was a bit of a challenge. I had to coalesce on, analyze various websites to find something I could actually do in public. So here's what I found. A gentleman was sitting in a restaurant at a truck stop having a wonderful bowl of soup, and he was enjoying it. 3 motorcycle riders come in. They walk up to him and say, "You're sitting at our table." The gentleman took another spoonful of soup. The head biker, being very angry, put out his cigarette in the soup. The gentleman looked up at him. The second biker said, "You are sitting at my table," and spit in his soup. The gentleman just looked at him for a minute. And the third biker said, "You're not listening," and threw the soup off the table. Well, the man threw the money on the table for his soup, got up and walked out. And the 3 bikers start laughing. "He's not much of a man, is he?" The waitress looks out the window and says, "He's not much of a truck driver either. He just ran over 3 motorcycles." Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Margot. Keeping us on time this morning, our timer, David Jones. Please share your role as timer, David.
Thank you, Marty, and good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Point of or just an observation. Kate and I are both in hotels, but different hotels. Kate's in Pennsylvania, and I'm in Missouri, where it's 6 in the morning. So definitely worth getting up for. Our times today, of course, for AM Lockport, our table topics are 1.5 minutes to qualify at the green. Got green at 1.5 or 1.5, yes. 1:45 yellow and red at whatever it is, 2 minutes.
Two.
Our speakers, I believe, are all 5 to 7. Only one has posted their time, but I'm going to go with 5 to 7, green at 5, yellow at 6, and red at 7. And then our evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes with green at 2, yellow at 2.5, and red at 3. And math is very difficult this early in the morning. And I will report when called upon. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, David. Next up is our quiz master, Mary. Mary, please come up and tell us about your role as quiz master. Pardon?
Nobody can hear me.
Yeah, stand right up.
Is that better?
That's good.
I'll be testing everybody's listening skills and I'm coming up with 5 questions and I'll be reporting back at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Mary. Next up is, let's see here. Our general evaluator this morning is Jackie Kenny. Jackie, please tell us about your role as general evaluator. Morning.
Oh, my. I will be observing, taking down names and making notes. I'll give a report at the end of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jackie. Moving into everyone's favorite portion of the meeting is our extemporaneous impromptu speaking portion of the meeting led by Joe Budnick. Joe, come on up.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Joe.
So favorite soups, that's an interesting topic that Marty picked this morning. I remember years ago when my mother and I went with a church group to I think it was London we went to, London and Ireland. We stopped in this restaurant, and obviously people in different countries don't exactly eat the same way us Americans do. Well, I believe this was in London. They gave us this bowl of, I don't know what it was. It was some kind of a soup. I think it was a squash soup. It was green. Now, I tried it. I thought it was absolutely delicious. I thought it was sweet. It was creamy. It was good. Well, everybody around the table looked like they were ready to toss their cookies. They're all looking at me like I'm some degenerate because I'm actually enjoying the meal and they're all ready to gag. They're thinking that, the people in this country are trying to poison the Americans. It was ridiculous. I think I ended up eating probably everybody's soup that night. Well, I'd like to ask our guest, Chuck, do you have a favorite kind of food that you enjoy eating or a favorite kind of soup? Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, sir. Nice to meet you.
I do actually have a favorite soup. Every year, one of my favorite meals is corned beef and cabbage. And then, but there's always the leftover broth and leftover corned beef and the cabbage. So when I take all of that and then I add other roots and vegetables from the cabbage family, I add broccoli and cauliflower, and I put in parsnips and onions and all of that, and I cook it all in that broth, and it makes a delicious soup. Yeah, that's right. They do coalesce. And then I, bag it up and freeze it up, and, I get to eat it up for the, the rest of the season, for soup season. Sometimes lasts into the summer. Yeah. I get about 10 or 12 bags. Yeah, big pot. Thank you. I don't give it to anybody else. No, and it's just my wife and I live together, and she doesn't really care for it, so I get to eat all of it. Oh, okay. I forgot about the time. Everything will turn green. It'll just kind of coalesce together and all right. Thank you.
Welcome aboard. And thank you that everybody decided to coalesce this morning too. Now, I was the world's pickiest eater as a child, despite the fact that both of my parents, my mom and dad, were actually pretty good cooks. However, my father used to make this tomato soup. He served it, it did not look like regular tomato soup, like thick and red and creamy. It was the most disgusting slop you could have ever seen. It was like chunks of slimy pieces of potato floating in milk. Well, the first time they served it to us, I said, "What in God's name is this?" "It's tomato soup." "Are you sure? You sure one of our dogs wasn't feeling so good today? Because that's what it looks like." Well, my parents were ready to smack me when I said that. That wasn't a nice thing to say when, my father made all that time and effort to make the soup. Suffice to say, I didn't eat it. So I'd like to ask Beth, do you have any foods that you don't like or have an aversion to, like I did with my father's famous tomato soup? I would not eat it unless it was Campbell's they open. I wouldn't eat it. I'm sorry. Look.
Yes, an aversion to a particular soup. Believe it or not, chili was not something that I really liked when I was growing up and for many, many years. I don't like the kidney beans. Well, guess what? What do you put in chili? You put in kidney beans. One family get together, they decided that, well, Beth makes good chili. I do not know where that idea came from. So I said, okay, I can coalesce the ingredients and I can make chili. I won't want to taste it to make sure it's okay, but I can make chili, sure. So believe it or not, I've made chili quite a few times since then, probably not enough for my husband, but it was something that I've come to like a little bit, but now I can't really eat spicy things. So it has to be chili that probably no one else would really want because it wouldn't be spicy enough for many people. But it is something that I've grown to like a little bit. I really prefer chowder, except for the stuff that's really peppery. My cousin has a chowder party, and in some of the years, the chowder was a little too peppery for me. I think they were trying to make up for not putting salt in as much. They put more pepper in, but that's my soup story. Thank you very much, Joe.
Yes, my mother's response to my father's famous tomato soup was, "Well, that's actually the way tomato soup is supposed to be made." It's like, not in my book. You want to eat it, fine. I'm not going to get sick. I know that wasn't a nice thing to say, but it really was gross. So I will agree that, making a nice bowl of soup in your home during the day and it's really cold out is a nice relaxing thing to do. And so I'd like to ask David Licata, if you don't have a job, what do you like to do on a cold, rainy day? What kind of food do you like to make? Or what do you like to fix for yourself when it's cold and rainy in your home? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests. next time you're in the market, Progresso creamy tomato with basil. That'll be under the Campbell's.
Okay.
Speaking of Campbell's, I ran into a fella whose name ended in a vowel, a fellow Mediterranean like myself. And he told me that his in-laws invited him to dinner before he was married to get to know him. His in-laws, when it came to pasta, were rather clueless because they just dumped the Campbell's on top of the pasta. Can you imagine? Now, to your question. If it's cold and rainy, it's got to be pasta, Joe. And what I do soup-wise, when I make pasta, I always make sure there's less over pasta. And I'm prone to ziti and prone to all the different shapes. Mezza rigatoni, I like that. Reminds me of Sundays at my grandma's. But to coalesce this opportunity, and I heard the word earlier, tortellini, fasten your seatbelts. Here comes the history of tortellini. There was an Italian nobleman that could afford to have a chef. He also had a beautiful wife. He hired the guy. Seems the wife and the chef got extremely friendly. So to mock the poor man, the chef walked in and said, I've invented this new pasta. I call it tortellini. What the poor bastard nobleman didn't know is that every tortellini was an exact replication of his wife's navel. Thank you very much.
So everyone have a good day today and go home and make yourself a wonderful bowl of soup. Thank you. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Joseph. At this point in time, we'd like to call for a word master report, Mark Campos. Mark, how did we fare with the word coalesce?
Mr. Toastmaster, I am pleased to report that all three contestants used the word this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And David Jones, how did we fare on time?
All of the contestants coalesced to qualify.
Awesome.
Chuck came in at 1:30, Beth at 1:40, and Dave at 2:05.
Okay, thank you, David. And at this point in time, if everyone would mark their ballots for Chuck, either Chuck, Beth, or David, will be collected in the room, and you'll receive the poll on Zoom. Thank you very much. While we're voting, I just have a little bit of information and some fun facts. I looked up from one of our favorite sources from Google. Did you know that women are 2 times likely to consume soup for lunch than men? They must have taken some poll and figured that out. And Americans, anyone guess how many bowls of soup the Americans consume in 1 year? It's in the billion. 10 billion. 10 billion bowls of soup per year. Now get this. I can't imagine how this coalesced, but it says the earliest archaeological evidence of consumption of soup dated back to 6000 BC. You'll never guess what kind of soup it was. It says, anyone? Fish? No, hippopotamus. Oh, hippopotamus soup. Moving into our next portion of the meeting is our speaking portion, our prepared speaking portion of the meeting. We have 3 prepared speakers this morning, and our first evaluator evaluating Nancy Ferry is Gerald Stevens. Is Gerald with us? I don't remember seeing Gerald initially. Yeah, okay, I missed that. Let me see here. Nancy, do you mind if we come back to you? That way someone in the audience can get your speech evaluation fund? Okay, we'll come back. Okay, our next on the list, Steve Smith, evaluated by Mike Florio. Mike, please share Steve's objectives. Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Marty. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guest Chuck, welcome back. It's good to see you. Nice job on the table topics. And my favorite soup is wonton. Or maybe Italian wedding. I like the little meatballs, you know, or whatever, and what little surprise inside the wonton. So that's, anyway, threw that in there. Steve Smith is going off the rails a little bit here. He's taking the path. He is not on a path for this speech, but you know, sometimes the path less chosen is a good one. And I think his speech this morning is some very good information about what's coming up. I don't want to steal his thunder, but Steve will be speaking. Timer, it is 5 to 7 minutes. And the title of Steve's speech is The Great American Eclipse, coming soon to a household near you.
I'm gonna just grab my stuff. Excuse me. Welcome, Steve. Stuff out of the way. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you.
Oh, not bad. Good morning. As some of you are probably aware, I'm just a little bit into astronomy. And we have an interesting event coming up this April 8th. It's been dubbed the Great American Eclipse. Totality is going right through us. Center line is right through Buffalo. And everything in a path 115 miles wide, centered on Buffalo, will be in the path of totality. This, to me, is a big event. Now, as part of this event, Jill and I are organizing a program down in Wilson. I have flyers here about that, on the day of the eclipse. And also, I've been working on this eclipse. Well, my club, the Buffalo Astronomical Association, has been working on this eclipse since the last partial eclipse went through here in August of 2017. We have been trying to stay organized. We have a consortium of groups, of which the BAA is a member, who are putting on public programs for the eclipse. Now, aside to all of this, I have been engaged as of now at 3 different speaking engagements, more to come possibly, about the eclipse. That's where you come in. I'm asking for a little help. Now, I know what I know about the eclipse. I don't know what other people know about the eclipse. So I've been compiling a list of questions that I want to answer in these different presentations I'm giving. Let's start with a few basics. The eclipse starts a few minutes after 2 o'clock when the moon first comes in contact with the sun, and we call that first contact. Then it moves slowly across the face of the sun, and approximately 3:18, it will be total. That's the fun time. Totality lasts, depending on where you are on center line, 3 to 3.5 minutes. And then it starts breaking away, and you can see that as the sun starts appearing. That's what we call third contact. And then it goes back off the sun, and when it finally separates, that's fourth contact. That's just our terminology. This whole event will be over by approximately 4:26, meaning the whole event lasts just under 2.5 hours. And the business then lasts 3 minutes. Fun. Now, a lot of people ask questions about this, and I've been to some other presentations, learning from what they're doing. What is an eclipse? Eclipse is simply when the moon's shadow blocks out the sun. Now, the sun is big, we're here, the moon's in the middle. How many types of eclipses are there? Well, there's several. This is a total eclipse, and it depends on where the moon is in its orbit. When it's close to it, is what we call perigee. It's close, the shadow's big, it'll cover the whole moon. When it's at apogee, further out, it's not big enough to block out the whole moon. So we have the moon here, but you still got a ring of sun around it. This is what we call an annular eclipse. We just had one of those last October. Wasn't visible from here. It was visible in Mexico. We couldn't see it because it was cloudy that day. We only had approximately 32% coverage here of that eclipse. Which gets to another question. How rare are eclipses? They're calling it a rare event. Well, it is and it isn't. There's eclipse going on somewhere almost every year, but not in the same spot. The next time we will have an eclipse here is about 120 years in the year 2144. And it'll be, I believe, on October 26th, if you want to mark your calendars for that one. Now, the biggest question and what I feel my job is here is to answer the question, how do I safely view the eclipse? Well, there's a number of things you can do. You can make a simple pinhole by taking anything, poke a hole in it, and projecting an image out this way on another piece of paper to watch it. I had at the last eclipse, a few kids brought colanders. You hold up a colander. Every one of those holes in the colander will project the miniature eclipse onto something. And I thought that was pretty cool. Now, how big an event is this? Well, at this eclipse in 2017, now mind you, we only had 72% coverage here. I still had a crowd of somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 people down at the park in Wilson to view this. This is a total eclipse. This is a lot bigger deal. We have no idea how many expect, but there'll be a lot of people in the area, and there's a lot of places hosting events to enjoy this eclipse, which is one of the questions I got. Where do I go to view the eclipse? And I said, outside. Because basically anywhere you're outside, if you can look up, you can see the eclipse, but you have to do it safely. Now, some people use welder's mask. That's fine if you use a dark enough shade, a 12 to 14. I actually had someone ask me the other day, can I use my torch goggles? No, they're not dark enough. They are what's commonly about a 4 to a 6 shade. That's nowhere near dark enough to safely view the sun. You need a dark welder's helmet if you're going to go that route. Now, years ago, and I got one of these and I use it for a teaching aid now. They used to sell you these little tiny screw-in filters that go into your eyepiece to put in your telescope. Never use them. You got a big objective lens out here. Anybody ever take a magnifying glass when you were a kid and try to burn stuff? Well, what do you think that objective is doing? The same thing. So that is not a safe way to view the eclipse. I have a proper filter which goes over the top of my scope, protecting all of the optics and more importantly, your eyes to view this eclipse. And we do have solar glasses available the day of the eclipse. A lot of places are giving them away. My club insists that I sell them. Either that or I have to pay for them. So guess what? I'm selling them. But my purpose today in coming here is severalfold. One, to get you excited about the eclipse. And two, to help me. I compiled questions that have come to me. If anyone's got any questions that maybe you don't understand about the eclipse that maybe I hadn't even thought of, bring them to me so I can incorporate this in the speeches I give to other people to help them enjoy the great American eclipse. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Our next speaker is Nancy Ferry, evaluated by Beth Banks. Thank you, Beth. Morning. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm back. Yes, so Nancy Ferry will be giving a speech this morning. It's not out of a particular path. She's chosen to go off the grid, as they say. That's okay with me. And her title is Weird Teacher, Build Character? Nancy Ferry, Weird Teacher, Build Character. 5 to 7 minutes, timer, whoever the timer is.
Before I start my time, two things. I want to ask Steve, those little glasses that they sell at Walmart or something, the paper ones that are $2, are those good enough? Or, okay. Okay, thank you very much. The other thing is about soup. My father was not a good cook, but every once in a while he got stuck making dinner or lunch or something when my mom was at work, particularly on Saturdays. And he was good at making concoction kind of things. And I remember the time he made liver, tomato, mushroom soup. There was a phone call to my mother, an emergency phone call from my sister and I. Do we have to eat this liver soup that Dad makes? Put your father on the phone. I think I made lunch that day. Okay, enough of that. Begin with my speech, Mr. Timer. I have a friend who posted on Facebook a picture of himself with a shirt that said, "Weird teachers build character." And this guy is a teacher. He's also kind of weird, but he's also one of those people who's just really, really good teacher. And I'm sure that he builds character in his students. Being weird is one of those words. We all have our own little definition. It means strange, unusual, unexpected, not natural, odd, bizarre, eccentric. Like I said, we all have our own idea of what weird is. And I've had some weird teachers in my day. I would like a little audience participation. I'm going to tell a few stories about some teachers that I've experienced. And I want a thumbs up for weird, building character. Thumbs down for just weird. Mr. E, grade school teacher, kind of a round, plump little guy that roly-poly rolled into the door. And shame to say, I was a thumbsucker when I was in grade school, especially when the class was boring. This guy called me up to his desk, asked me to put my thumbs out. He masking taped both of them, masking taped my mouth shut, and hung a sign on me that said, "I'm a sucker," and insisted that I go out to the playground with that on. And I was supposed to ride the bus and wear it at home so my parents would know. I think my parents knew that I. Thumbs up, weird, building character. Just plain weird. Thank you. I'm not the only one. Miss S was an English teacher. She was weird, kind of eccentric, dressed a little matronly. After we read a poem and a short story written by a Hindu, someone in the class asked if we could learn a little bit more about Hindu beliefs. So after school, we set up one day a week, we would talk about the Hindu culture and traditions, and it broadened. It ended up being, we asked about all these other religions that we had never heard of: Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, Sikhism. It just broadened our horizons as something beyond our little school in North Branford, Connecticut. Thumbs up, weird, and building character, or thumbs down, just plain weird? I hope so. Then there was Mr. T, junior high science teacher. The girls all loved him. He was cute. He was a lead singer in a band that had a record cut. Some people liked him because he had a lot of animals around the room. He would wear a snake around his neck. And my heart is palpitating just thinking about him. There was a woman, a young girl who transferred to our classroom from another school. She was a little ball of nerves. She was just one of these people who couldn't sit still. She was always late for class. And one day she asked him if he would take the snake off from around his neck, and he didn't do it. The next time we went into class, she was late as usual. And the teacher said, well, oh, she said, thank you for taking the snake off. And he goes, oh, you're more than welcome. He said, everybody, we're going to clean out our desks today. And they were the cubby desks with the top and the little cubby. She scooped in there and pulled out everything in that desk, including the snake. She went into a full-blown panic attack as he sat there and laughed at her. Weird, yes. Weird and character building, or just weird and traumatic. Then there was Miss B. She was a biology teacher, known as the scariest, weirdest, and toughest teacher in the whole school. But she challenged us. She challenged us to explore, to reach beyond our comfort zone. Her expectations were way up here. I was scared to death, but I aced it. And at the end of the semester, for our final exam, she had us do a debate. The debate went well. I excelled. I wanted to prove myself. And after class, she asked me if I would be willing to publicize having a debate team in our school, which was never happened before. Thumbs up, weird, building character, or thumbs down, just weird. I haven't seen online, but I'm glad that there's some agreement in what weird can mean. Thank you for your votes. Teachers build character by being approachable, listening, taking interest and respecting their students, not through humiliation and traumatization of students. I'm grateful for all the wonderful weird teachers who have been building character in our schools, not only in our schools, but everywhere that we go, we find teachers. Thumbs up to all of those people who teach us lessons, including people in this room.
Thank you, Nancy. Our third speaker today is Tracy Farrell, will be evaluated by Mike Licata. Mike.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and to our guest, Chuck. Tracy will be speaking out of the pathways, persuasive influence level 3, connect with storytelling. The purpose of this project is for a member to practice using a story within a speech or give a speech that is a story. Mr. Timer, the time is 5 to 7 minutes. I do believe you have the title, correct, Marty?
Yes. The title is Don't Be a Chicken. Tracy Farrell, Don't Be a Chicken.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. And before we start, I'm going to tell you my favorite soup isn't chicken soup, but butternut squash soup. Now on to my speech. So do you guys remember being little kids and calling your friends chicken for not wanting to do something? And it really could have been for anything. Maybe it was like not wanting to sneak into that movie, or maybe it was you didn't want to talk to that really cute guy in homeroom class. Let me tell you, little chickens grow up to be big chickens. And I know because I've been a chicken all my life. I had all these questions. Should I or should I not go away to college? Should I get married? Should I get divorced? Should I start a new job? Should I take a job at Margin Manor? Because everybody knows that place is haunted. Or should I speak in front of Toastmasters? We all feel chickens standing up and speaking in front of Toastmasters. But I'm going to tell you about a guy who was never afraid, no matter what his circumstances were. Colonel Heartland Sanders. You guessed it, the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken, or as we know it, KFC. This man was no stranger to adversity, but he kept moving forward. He was born in 1890 in Henryville, Indiana. His father died when he was only 6 years old, and that forced his mother to go out, leave the house, and work long hours during the day. Sanders was in charge of his two little siblings, and that's where he started cooking. It wasn't long after he dropped out of school in the 6th grade, so he could become a farmhand. At 13, he left home. His mother died and he left home. And from there on, it was a series of jobs, being fired once after another. He eventually married Josephine King, and they had 3 children. But as his luck would have it, the youngest one died, and that led to their divorce. Once again, he went through a series of jobs. He was a fireman, he was a lawyer, kept getting fired from all of these jobs until one day the Shell Oil Company gave him a fantastic deal. They gave him a gas station, rent-free, and said, here, take it over, do what you must, but we just want a percentage of the sales. Being the fantastic promoter that Sanders was, he painted a sign directing all the traffic into his little gas station. The competitor down the street wasn't too happy about it. Once you know, there was a shootout. The competitor actually shot and killed Sanders' companion. The competitor went to jail for life, and that's how he eliminated that competition. But out of his little gas station, he went on and began to sell chicken and sandwiches, and this is where he perfected his recipe. Those spices just coalesced to make the perfect Kentucky Fried Chicken. However, once again, as his luck would have it, in 1939, the gas station burned down and he was left penniless. He had $105 in his pocket from his Social Security. But not to be dismayed, he picked up that chicken recipe and went door to door trying to sell it. It was a tough job, and often he was living out the back seat of his car. A year later, after 1,000 rejections, he still had no takers. He was almost going to have to give up, and he was left with very little hope until he landed in Salt Lake City. And on the 1,010th try, he knocked on Peter Harmon's door, asking him to try his recipe. Didn't know it, but Peter Harmon was the owner of the largest restaurant in Salt Lake City. From there, they developed a franchise opportunity. And within 1 year, sales had tripled. 75% of those sales were attributed to Colonel Sanders' recipe. Finally, in 1964, he was able to sell his ownership of that franchise for $2 million, the equivalent of about $20 million today. And he was able to remain as a paid face of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Before his death in 1980, he was quoted as saying, "One has to remember that every failure can be a stepping stone to something bigger." So Colonel Sanders was never a chicken. When faced with adversity, he stood up and served that chicken on a plate. The moral of this story is, don't be a chicken. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tracy. Now that we've heard from our 3 speakers, I'd like to call for a timer's report, please. David Jones.
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster. I have Nancy at 6 minutes and 11 seconds, Steve at 6 minutes and 49 seconds, and Tracy at 5 minutes and 33 seconds. All 3 qualify.
Thank you, David. At this time, we can vote for best speaker. This time, I just want to share a couple gifts that I recently received. This one was actually, it's from both of the gifts are from my aunt. Some of you may know it's Sister Claire Schwack. She's a retired sister of St. Mary Namor. And each year she puts together some type of little glass jar, a reusable container. This happens to be a small canning jar. And inside it is the concoctions and the ingredients you would need for soup other than the liquid. This is a potato soup mix. And she has the recipe. She has the recipe on it, and she usually decorates it with a little homemade little bowl and a little decoration. This is really neat. I treasure these. And I have a second one. This one is from 2022. This is a turkey noodle soup, but she puts all the dry ingredients in it. And there's all the dry ingredients, and this has tri-colored pasta and the dry soup mix in it, but it's a turkey noodle soup. She does a lot of homemade things and crafts, and she's very, what's the word, economical, if you will. And I'm sure this will coalesce in a nice pot. What do you think, Dave?
You gotta cook the pasta separate and add it again. You got a little separated.
Okay.
Otherwise it's mush. Gotta be al dente.
Okay, I definitely remember to cook the pasta separately.
That's the way.
This point in time, I'd like to move into the evaluation portion of the meeting. Oh, Mary. Pardon? Eric, yes, Eric. Welcome. Could you share your role, Eric? Hello, Eric.
Yes, can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Can anybody hear me all right? All right, beautiful. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. I just got, some soup captions and puns. If, join me in some laughter, a little bit more laughter. Feeling super cozy with this bowl of goodness. Stay brothful and enjoy a comforting bowl of soup. And the last one, ladle by ladle, soup makes everything butter.
Right.
Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Eric. I'm glad you made it in, Eric. Thank you. Our first evaluator this morning is Beth Banks. Beth, welcome.
Thank you. I volunteered to be Nancy's evaluator before I knew what her speech title was. I thought it was appropriate, seeing as I kind of considered myself a weird teacher when I was teaching, as my speech from last week kind of showed you. So I thought that was very appropriate. Oh my goodness. There are so many things that she excelled at, the hand gestures. I love the audience participation, the thumbs up, thumbs down. I thought that was really great. And the different stories about different teachers. We all have stories about some of our teachers. So I enjoyed that. What they wore, all the different little details. I loved her vocal variety. It was up, down, kind of around. It was very good. I love the word palpitating. That's a good word to add in there. Maybe not that it was good, your heart was palpitating, but I like the word anyway. So I would say the only thing I could really come up with that she needs to work on is not holding on to the lectern. We all do it. There's so many of us. Yes, we've got to hold on to this to make sure we don't topple over, which I get. We do it. But that would be the only thing that I would really suggest. Like I said, I love your stories. We all have them. you know, one of my favorites was Madame Kavakovich. We all called her Madame K because half the kids couldn't pronounce Kavakovich. She taught French. She took us to Quebec City. I want to get back there. I would love to go back to Le Chateau Frontenac. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Our next evaluator evaluating Steve Smith is Mike Florio. Welcome, Mike. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Chuck, welcome again. And especially Steve. Now, I told you, he went off the path, but there's nothing really wrong with that. And what a speech Steve gave this morning. It was very, very informative. He has so much knowledge that he, let's see, what word can I use? He coalesces into, you know, this fine soup, and he brings it to us because he loves astronomy. You can tell that in his speech, right when he comes up. He's so excited, almost too excited. Steve usually is really quite poised, but I think he had so much information that he wanted to get out there that he got a little excited, and he was fast for Steve, actually, in a way. And, you know, maybe in the future, you might want to have a handout to people. You had so much great information. April 8th is the date, right? We know that. The center line comes right through Buffalo. Yeah, I see the handout that you showed me. I didn't know if that's going to go to everyone and have all the information. Okay, good. And I'm glad you have that. Everything about Steve is that theatrical. He could make really anything kind of come to life the way he does things. And he, you know, he talked about it with me on my speech last week. And I guess turnabout is fair play here, that he's the theatrical guy, and everything that he does, his hand gestures are great. He's always constantly looking, and he sneaks those little jokes in there. Okay, where's it going to be? Well, it's going to be outside. I go, oh, okay, yeah, right. That's right. Okay. And he just went over so many different items on here that I got a little bit lost, and I was trying to write down as much as I could. And I know that this speech was maybe toned down for us, condensed in a sense of something that you might go over an hour with somebody, maybe even 2 hours. So in my mind, you know, and you ended with a great call for help from everyone to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to be presenting this information to people. I need your help for more questions. I think that we are better off for having you here. The knowledge that you share with us is tremendous. I really enjoyed the speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. And next up, we have Mike Licata evaluating Tracy Farrell's speech. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Marty. Good morning again, fellow Toastmasters, and Chuck, and especially Tracy. Tracy, this was a really, really well-researched speech. Everyone was aware of Harlan Sanders. Everyone that's ever went into a KFC has been aware of his presence, even though he's been dead since 1980. We all know who he is. We just didn't know the story and the hard work that he had to put in to create such a successful business. Your camera was well positioned. You were centered into it. It was a good job. One of the critiques I did have is that I felt that your gestures were muted because most of it was taking place below the camera line. And I know we have to get used, when we're on camera, we have to get used to creating more with our hands and making sure that even though it's uncomfortably close, our hands are uncomfortably close to our place, they're more likely to see the gestures than if they were muted underneath. You definitely did the objectives of the speech, even though this is a basic speech, the story of Harlan Sanders. You went into well-researched, it was detailed, you did a tremendous job of presenting the information. I thought that we all learned something this morning, so thank you again for that. And one useless piece of information I do have is the fact that if anybody can name the famous restaurateur that used to work for KFC, got mad at the employers and went on to start his own very famous chain. Who was it and what chain was it? And I'll just skip the whole thing. Dave Thomas actually used to work for KFC Corporation. He got mad at them, decided to start his own fast food chain, and ended up naming it after his daughter. So that's how Wendy's came to be. That's another piece of useless information this morning. One last piece. But Tracy, you did an overall really good job. And I look forward to your next speech, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mike. May we have a timer's report, David Jones.
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster. All of our evaluators qualified. We have Beth at 2 minutes and 2 seconds, Mike Florio at 2:40, and Mike Licata at 2 minutes and 13 seconds.
Thank you, David. So at this point, you can vote for the best evaluator, Beth Banks, Mike Florio, Mike Licata. They'll be collected and there will be a poll sent out to those on Zoom. Before I turn the meeting over to our general evaluator to call for reports, thank you, Jackie. I just want to share one of my most memorable occasions where I enjoyed a warm cup of soup. And yes, it was at work. It was in the frozen food department, of course. And this was, I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago. My sister had invited me to go on vacation with her and some of her family. And we were going to Aruba, and my boss knew about it. And I was leaving the next day. And they needed help in the frozen food department. So who else would they ask? Someone that's going to go bask in 90-degree temperature to go work in sub-zero temperature. But it was great. I had a blast. I didn't care. I knew I was going to be warm for the next week. You know, my hands were a little cold. But cold, any of you that have worked in the cold probably understand what I'm saying. Your hands will get cold, pretty much no matter what. But after a while, when you get the blood flow, your hands get used to the cold. And being away from working in the frozen food department and stocking for a while, and like anything else, it takes a while for your system to adjust to it. But that was my most memorable event of enjoying the soup. For my lunch, I think it was, what did I have? I had a chicken corn chowder or something like that from the Carry-Out Cafe. I sat down and had a nice warm bowl, and I was good to go for the rest of the day. And the next day, I was basking in the sun. You know, I didn't care. You know, I think he just was joking because he knew that I was leaving, and he said, "We need you over there." Everything worked out fine. Thank you, everyone, for participating this morning. At this point in time, I'd like to call up Jackie Kenny, our general evaluator, who will evaluate the Toastmaster, the evaluators. Call for reports. Thank you so much.
I will be happy to do
Thank you so
that.
much.
Thank you. All right. Great meeting this morning, and I love making soup. I don't know about the rest of you, but the chopping and dicing and sauteing and stirring and going back and checking on it, and the whole house gets steamy and smells good. I think it's a wonderful way to spend time. Excellent job. Nice theme, Marty. I think our transitions need work. Everybody needs to work on the transitions. If you have a role, you know you're going to be called up, get on deck, and be ready to come forward. Those lags in time disturb the meeting. Obviously, the table topics people don't know until it gets close that they're going to be called on. So they need to get ready. And we left poor Chuck hanging this morning. He didn't know the routine in our new environment, but he did a great job, and I'm glad to see him back here again. Our evaluators were very good this morning. They all dug in and found something to suggest to the speaker to improve their speech. I think the idea of a handout for Steve was great. Beth nudged down and found a way that Nancy could have made things a little bit better. And it was a challenge for Mike to find something to suggest to Katie or to Tracy, sorry. Everybody did an excellent job. One thing I want to suggest to everyone though, dig into the speech categories. You can put a speech in any path. There's a place for it somewhere. Don't waste the time that you spent composing that speech and giving it your best effort by not putting it in a path. It will make time for a speech. It will be a place. I felt Nancy's speech could have been the mentor speech. She talked about people that made a difference in her life. All of us can find a place to get credit for those speeches. And remember, they give credit to the club as well. Every level you go up helps our club move forward. So it's important to make that extra effort to find a place to put that speech. And that's my rant for today. So smooth transitions, finding a place for your speech, it's all important. And all the work we did this morning is important. So Quizmaster Mary, how about if you come up here and ask those 5 questions that you promised us this morning? 6, you found an extra one. Good job. That means you really paid attention this morning and you're going to acknowledge that now.
Helped me though.
Oh, of course you did.
And Eric
That's
said
what
he
we
has
do.
a couple announcements at the end.
We'll call on him at the end.
What is Marty's favorite soup?
Anything that's warm, chicken noodle.
What kind?
When the room answers, repeat it into the microphone so the people on Zoom know what the answer
Oh.
is to.
Should I repeat the question?
No. Keep on going.
What kind of soup was Beth asked to make? Chili. What kind of pasta does Dave use in his soup? Tortellini? I didn't know. What was the first soup? Hippopotamus. How long has Steve been working on the eclipse for? Since 2017. And what is Tracy's favorite soup? Butternut squash.
All right, lots of questions and lots of right answers from the room. And now we'd like to hear from our WAG master. How did the word of the day do, Mark? And what else can you tell us about grammar and language?
Well, Madam General Evaluator, between the challenges of this job and the adventures I had with polls this morning, it has been an interesting meeting for me. I've taken all the other Toastmasters who are in Zoom land on a pretty rough ride this morning. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, let's get started, shall we? Let's begin with the Master report. David Jones with 2, Joe Budnack with a 2-2 restart, and you had 1. Chuck had more than 5. Beth Banks, you had 3. However, so's were your nemesis this morning. I counted 4 of those. Granted, you did speak twice. Dave Licata 1, Marty 1. Steve Smith, couple of restarts. Nancy, you had 1. Eric had 3. Mike Licata had a couple of restarts. Jackie, you had a so. Shocking. Now on to our grammarians report. I'm gonna do our grammarians report. David Jones, you had a gonna. Joe Budnack, I loved toss their cookies. You had a couple of you knows and a gonna. Chuck, a few you knows. Beth, I liked going off the grid. Dave Licata had a gotta. That rhymes. Very clever. Mike Florio, going, coming, a couple of you knows. Steve Smith, a wanna. You had questions I got, questions I received would have been better. I love the word totality. I'm pretty excited about the eclipse myself, and I've been trying to spread the word to people. Totality is just one of those words I just love saying. It just sounds pretty cool. But here's to hoping we have a clear day. Please let it be a clear day. Otherwise, I will be very upset. Nancy, a wanna, gonna, one of each. Tracy, gonna, something, wanna, should I like speak? Living out the back seat, living out of the back seat. Mike Licata, you wanted to really, really emphasize words by using them twice. So you had a really, really, and a useless, useless. Just one of those would have sufficed. Oh yeah, the word of the day. I was very upset. I thought Coalesce was going to become an all-time dud in AM Lockport after table topics. However, all of you restored my faith in your ability to use the word of the day. Outside of table topics, I heard David Jones, I heard Joe Budnack, I heard Marty 3 times, Mike Florio 1, and Tracy 1. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you very much. I thought coalesce was a very good word, especially in regard to soup making. All those things meld together and give us delicious flavors. Now we're going to hear from Chuck, who has come back to us and is going to tell us what he thought about the meeting this morning. Chuck.
Thank you. Again, caught a little off guard. I'll have to watch my ums and you knows. I thought the meeting was really good. I like where it is. The room feels very comfortable to me. I did like the restaurant as well because we got to eat something while we were going along. Do they? Sounds good. There's an awful lot of things that go on in the meeting that I had forgotten about. Just the whole process of being able to evaluate people, the things to look for. It's challenging, but I'm really looking forward to coming back again. All right.
You're very welcome back. Thank you for coming up and telling us what you thought. All right, who's our officer of the day this morning?
I can take over if you want me to, Jackie.
Oh, sure. Why don't you do that, Eric? And I'll find out who our winners are.
All right. Jackie, before I forget, you are the Toastmaster next week, Jackie.
I know. I'll come
And
up
do you have
with
a theme?
something.
Okay. Also we have our announcements after Marty announces the winners. And Marty, before you do that, we like to invite some members who, if we have time, who didn't get a chance to speak about their favorite soups. And if we can start with Marshall. Marshall, do you have a favorite soup?
Soup. I can join more time to learn because I'm not familiar for online meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marshall with Sylvia.
Oh, I have many favorite soups. Growing up, it was what my mother called Manesha. I don't know exactly what it was. Had potatoes in it, all these vegetables. Was done with oxtail soup, bones, beef soup flavoring. And when I'm sick, I do love the Chinese house soup. It's more or less the broth more than the vegetables. There's something about it always makes me feel better.
Okay, thank you. How about Phil Russell?
Sorry, you mean soup, not a rule. Sorry, I didn't get it.
Oh, go ahead, Marshall.
Okay. Let me talk about my favorite soup. The theme is maybe it's prepared for me. I just ate one bowl of my favorite soup, my hometown Martin soup. Now I stay in Guangdong province. There are Hong Kongese, Cantonese. They are very good at cook soup. They have thousands of kinds of soup to coalesce. Let me coalesce meat and Chinese medicine, the herb medicine. If you have some ill, the children have some ill in Cantonese, their mom don't take them to hospital. They cook a soup first because it has some herb. But my favorite soup is from my hometown, the north of China. It's Martin soup. The name is the best soup under the sky. I usually discuss with my Inner Mongolia friends which Martin soup is better. But one day when I visit my friend in Inner Mongolia, I know they only eat meat and throw away the soup. The Martin soup in my hometown means New Year, the Chinese New Year. For every Chinese New Year, we cook one bowl of soup. It's a half of a mutton, a sheep. We eat more than 20 days. So this mutton soup make me to miss my hometown. Thank you very much. It's my favorite.
Thank you, Marshall. How about Phil Russell?
Yes, Marty, I was glad to coalesce this morning with everyone in person and on Zoom. And my favorite soup, which I was this past week, a little under the weather with either the flu or some kind of bacterial infection, and was chicken noodle. And my wife, Chris, brought home some Vietnamese chicken noodle, which was a little spicy, but very good. They mix it up a little different. I like the broth. They had the noodles, the different kind of noodles that they use over there. And the chicken was lots of hunks of chicken. It was very good. Now, when I'm feeling better, my favorite soup, of course, is chili. Big bowl of chili and a nice beer. The only way to go. Mr. President, or Toastmaster.
Thank you, Phil. Anyone that has not on Zoom spoken about their favorite soup? Looks like everyone. How about in the room?
Well, I guess I haven't, Marty.
Oh, Mark, go ahead, Mark.
I like numerous types of soup, but I think there's a direct relationship between how fattening and unhealthy it is to how much I like it. the thicker, the heavier, the more fattening it is, the more I like it. So like a New England clam chowder, lobster bisque, a thick chowder, any other type of chowder that's just a thick soup, anything that basically lends itself well to mopping up what's left in the bowl with some nice Italian bread or something, that's in my wheelhouse, Mr. Toastmaster.
Joe agrees with you, Mark. Joe Budnick. So, thank you, Mark. Anyone else? Len? Lenny?
Okay, hands down, my favorite soup is chili. Sorry, Beth. I look forward to making the first batch every year as it starts to get chilly out, quite frankly. And I put everything in mine. It's like a paella of soup, okay? 5, 6 different types of beans, from garbanzos, not just kidney beans, any kind of bean you can imagine. Gotta have celery for the crunchiness. You put that in last so it doesn't soften too much. Carrots, all kinds of stewed tomatoes, of course, the ground beef, seasonings galore. I make a huge pot of that. It rarely goes uneaten into the freezer. Occasionally, I'll tuck a little bowl in the freezer just for a rainy day. But I enjoy making it, really enjoy eating it. When it all coalesces, it's just ambrosia to me. While I'm up here, quick report. People are doing better with the microphone. I'm going to turn the lectern sideways here. Some people have a tendency to stand back here and talk. That doesn't really work. That's not the way microphones work. You should be about 3 inches away from the microphone, and it should be pointed at your mouth, okay? This adjusts pretty easily, depending on your height. So practice that. Again, if you can't hear your voice coming out of the speaker, you're not close enough. So some room to go there, some room to grow there. Welcome to our guest. Chuck, you'll get the hang of this. Hope you enjoyed your first hybrid meeting. I'm sure all the people in Zoom land did. And a shout out to Mark Campus for our Zoom master today. Back to you.
Thank you, Len. Jill Roaring, favorite soup? Jill?
I don't know that I have a favorite soup. I do enjoy making soup. I like the idea of a one-pot meal. That way I'm not trying to cook 5 different things or 3 different things. In fact, I made a pot of chili last night. And Steve and Dad both enjoyed it. I probably make soup at least 1 day a week because of the comfort factor and because of the get it done and let it simmer and not heavy cooking activity. I also make a Hamburg vegetable soup. I've made chicken noodle soup. What else do I make, Steve? Corn chowder. I made potato soup last week. That was by Dad's request. When we were in fact, he found a recipe about a month ago for potato soup, and I didn't follow it, but but he liked it enough that he requested it again, which was a good thing while we were all homesick, that the 3 of us could keep eating together because we are all sick together. So that is about all on my favorite soups. Marty.
Thank you, Jill. I believe that is going to conclude our meeting other than our awards, correct? Okay, time for the awards. Yay, awards. Our first award goes to our best table topic speaker. Table topic speaker, Chuck Hoy, best table topics for the day. Come on up and get your ribbon for best table topics. There you go. Welcome back. Nice to see you. Thank you.
Am I supposed to say something or just?
You can if you want to.
Yeah. Thank you, Chuck.
will. I want to thank you all. You've been very welcoming, everyone. And I look forward to coming back and having lots more meetings. I'll try to get a little closer. Len?
Thank you, Chuck. Best evaluator, Mike Florio. Mike Florio. Got two Mike. There you go. There you go, Mike. Thank you. Best speaker of the day, Nancy Ferry. Nancy. Welcome, Nancy. For Split Club. Nancy's picking a number for the Split Club, 50-50. The winner is the last three numbers, 994. 994. Beth Banks.
Marty?
I don't have
I
anything
do have a-
else. Does anyone else have anything? Eric? Before we
Yes,
close?
I have announcements. I put it in the chat too. This weekend is the Area 11 and 13 contest at the Amherst Public Library at 350 John James Audubon Parkway in Guestville. Dr. Stevens is in our international contest and Steve Smith is in the evaluation contest. So please come on out. It's from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Please come out and cheer on our members as they compete in that contest. Also, another announcement, our speakers for next week, if I remember correctly, I just put it in the chat, is Mike Florio, David Jones, and Phil Russell. And alternate speaker is Mike Licata. And Jackie Kenny will be our Toastmaster. And that's all I have. So thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Eric. And again, that soup sale is at All Saints Parish in the Church Hall, Saturday, February 10th at 11 a.m. All are welcome.
Marty, can you send that in an email?
I can.
Thank you.
I can. That concludes the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Have a wonderful day. And thank you, Len.